class, the class divide of the two worlds and the pyramid that shapes it. The truth is, in our faces, we should have not turned away from the ideas to help the working class. Thus, to each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Who, by Karl Marx. Who would have known he was correct? Why does the rich have power? Why does the system seem unfair? How come I cannot get as many of the same goods as they got? I'm positive you have asked these questions multiple times. You are right to ask them. There might have been people in your life that tell you they are smart, they deserve it. Or the most common one, if you work hard enough, you will be there. You heard this multiple times, so have I. But this line of thinking is exactly what the higher class wants you to think. This thinking is wrong and should be abandoned, for not only is it wrong because most higher classes money is inherited, but that this is a lie and the higher class knows it, so that way you can think that way to keep them in power. This is no theory. This is a known fact that has been happening throughout the capitalist first and third world, as well on how the first world exploits the third. For sure, the third world is paying the price for the first world too. As we know, many people have died in the third world for many reasons, but the media keeps blaming socialism, even though this is the wrong as well, because all of these ties go back to capitalism. 8 million die from dehydration. 7.5 million people die from starvation, and 3.5 million people die from vaccine treatable diseases. Put that together, that is 20 million people. All these deaths are under capitalism, both first and third world. 20 million people die per year under capitalism. This has been happening for the last 5 years in the Black Book of Communism. It has said that communism has killed 100 million people since 1917 to 1997. While if you do the math, capitalism has killed more than that since the last 5 years. The reason this is capitalism's work is because the first world exploits the third world. For example, look in Afghanistan or Iraq. They have been invaded by the US, and now they have private lands for production in most of its land. Not only this is an example, but this is what is causing the working class there to be poor, because since the land is private, the work that the working people put in goes to the wealth of the landowner. So the landowner does nothing and still gets more money than the worker that puts in the effort. The worst thing about it is that they know this, but they choose not to care because there is no profit out of fixing this, even though they are in a bad situation as it is already. It is estimated if the top 1% gave 10% of their money to all of these problems total, it would be more than enough to help these people and to make starvation in the third world no longer exist. But they don't, because there is no profit in helping those people. Therefore, since there is profit, there is no profit, there is no money. Since there is no money, they don't care. These are the reasons on how capitalism is a system where they exploit the working class for their own benefit. This is why capitalism is an economic system where money is more important than a human's life. So, by this knowledge, how do you think we should handle this? How can we help these people get to a good and maybe even great life? Well, you can't in a capitalist economy. Even with social democracy will not help these people. The reason being is because this is capitalism by nature. Even with capitalism with socialist ideas such as free healthcare, big government, spending on public goods, and free education, like social democracy, which Bernie Sanders is pushing for. This will still not help them because if there was a mild free market restriction, the bourgeoisie will still find a way to exploit it. You can look at Sweden, for example. Yes, they have a social democracy government, but their higher class company owners have still found a way to use the third world for their own benefit with no regards to the people living there. Why? Why are they doing this? Why can't they help the people that need it more? The reason being is because they do not care. This is the bourgeoisie. And on what their behavior is, they do not care about the working people, or as we should call them, the proletariat. As long as they get the profit, they will stop at nothing to keep getting it, because that is what capitalist behavior is in a capitalist economy. This is why capitalism is an economic system where money is more important than a human's life. This seems unfair, you might say. This is unfair because socialist nations had less people. You would also say. So let's say over 7 billion people now live under socialism. Then compare that to consider the most socialist populations, which is 1 billion, if we're generous. That would equal 100 million over 80 million, and that would equal to 1.25 million every year for 80 years to the 100 million. Now that by 7, that would equal 7 million, and that might equal 7 million total, and 8.75 million per year. Now, if this were accurate and you did the same thing but only with capitalism, you get 1,600 million and 20 million. That is far from half. I mean, very far from just half. Now you're probably thinking, well, I'm not in the third world. I'm in the first where I'm safe. Unless if you are in the first world. Unless if you are not in the first world. Well, how about we look at the richest capitalist society now? The United States. Ah, yes, the land of the free. Or is it? The United States is the richest country in the world, yet it faces many problems, such as with its people rather die than go into medical debt. The government's economy, high unemployment, high poverty, unequal pay for minorities, women, and middle class or lower class, a screwed up social security, school shootings, less education compared to the rest of the first world, supporting genocidal regimes that kills millions in order to further their own goals, having free markets so companies can do whatever they want when they want with no restriction whatsoever, which causes inequality, and many more. You are not safe because you are in the first world. You are still vulnerable to capitalism's grip onto you and its exploitation that it brings. You might be caught in the crossfire if you are lower class, because it has many times. A study in 2014 shows that about 30% of lower class citizens have been wronged by the higher class. The study said that this number will rise by 2023. By the way things are going, it has for lots of people in the first world and third world as well. This is an awful system of capitalism that is not special to kind or capitalism or corporatism. It's just regular old capitalism. We can avoid this, but the higher class does not want that to happen because it keeps them in power, and the ones that are oppressed, which is the working class, still oppressed. Why Why this might be a theory in the United States, but this is known a fact that the United States has done to stop workers' power. Then they would have the decency to call it counterterrorism, even though all it is, it's just lies to stop the working people from taking power. They may call it communist tyranny, even though most were democratic socialist. It makes no sense. So let's break it down, as most say. Who are these people and why? Well, for now, let's talk about the facts of imperialism that the United States has committed. We can all say that most of the United States history is act on imperialism, and today founded on it. From Manifest Destiny to the Libya coup, from both Republicans and Democrats, the two main political parties in the United States. The reason they do commit such atrocities is because it gives profit. So they do everything they can for that profit to make money, even if it means breaking the law, which they have, by the way. In 2016, there is a leak by the Panama government that exposed lots of celebrities, people in governments themselves, and the higher class in general using their money onto getting more people by killing the poor and taking their money. Basically, the rich and powerful oppress the lower class to stay rich and powerful. This is known as the Panama Leaks of 2016, where they released data, of the rich and powerful killing poor people to stay rich and powerful. The worst part about it is that when you try to stop it, they still get profit. Reason being is because of, political correctness. Now, I agree that we are all equal, but it is true that big corporations advertise such fights against them because it is good for business and profit for them and not the workers. Like gay pride parades, a lot of companies sponsor gay pride parades in order to profit and seem likable to the homosexuals or bisexuals or transgender and the whole entire LGBTQ group as a whole. Even when you donate money to a cause, you are giving money to them because when they do these things, it makes them more likable. They don't really care about gay people or the working class. They just want profit. Now, after listening to this, does not mean you should stop being politically correct. Being politically correct is what makes leftists being leftist. However, be politically correct without helping the corporations that want only profit. This is capitalism, not corporatism, just regular old capitalism. We can't even rebel peacefully against the bourgeois because they advertise it so much that it's okay that we do rebel. The more the lower class wants to change, the more money they get. So they are ignored and not given a decent wage to even live. While this is happening, the ones that are supposed to pay for them are saving that money for themselves. That is the real reason we have so much poverty in the United States. Not only the United States, but in the world at this point. Under capitalism, the higher class gets workers to work as hard as they can with the lowest pay. This is how capitalism oppresses the working class. We can't even be safe in our own workplaces. By that, we can't even have a home for such exploitation against the workers. The saying stays true. It may be called freedom, but is only free to the ones on top, by Karl Marx. We need to solve this. We need to solve this in order to help the ones that do need help, because the ones we are helping already had enough help as it is. The ones we have helped are the higher class, such as the 1%. If we are to give what we can give and take what we need, the millions dying will no longer die, but but that is not possible for now. The truth is we are to give more workers freedom in the workplace, so that way they can produce what they need and what they need to give. They would not have to worry about being fired as long as they work as much as they need. This would actually help this issue. They would also need to distribute. The workers can distribute what the people need. If they need food or water, they can distribute that to them more than it would help a lot. The workers own the means of production and distribution. If this were to happen, it would do more than it would help a lot. We need to be able to make the bourgeoisie give what they can to help the people that need those goods most, because they have enough already and they need to give it to the people that need it more than them. Despite the kinds of things you may have heard about the proletarian state or what you would call socialism, it can only work in this society. Especially since in capitalism we are actually overproducing more what we need. That overproduced goods can go to the people that need it more, but it's thrown away and not given because there is no profit. This is how classes are divided. They are divided to the line where the lower class are struggling to live and they cannot escape from such oppression. The higher class, the higher class are not struggling. In fact, they are enjoying themselves, keep getting richer without a second thought. This is why under capitalism and this global system now is made to make sure that the lower class does not get the same satisfaction. Hence the reason they are rich, because they get profit out of the people that are not rich. It's good for business for them and their own hunger to do exploitation. This is the class divide. The reason they are divided is because of capitalism. Capitalism is what makes them divided, because they get money off of exploiting them and making them work for the lowest pay for them to work, while they work to live and have a decent life. The higher class does nothing and still gets paid more than the common worker. This is what affects the lower class, or the 99%, as the United States will call it. We have the ability to work for ourselves and produce and distribute what we need, because that is what is happening. Because that is what is happening. But instead, for ourselves, we produce for someone else that does not even give us a decent wage. This affects you as well. You most likely have a job and have a boss, manager, or just an employer in general, correct? If it is correct, then you are all the other 99%. No, this is true. The truth is, you're not working for your own freedom. You are working for their freedom. By doing this, you are actually more vulnerable to higher class influence instead of working for your own production. You are working for someone else. All of the poverty in the United States and the rest of the world is because you do not own your production and distribution. If we can give enough to people that need the goods most, it will do away more than just fix everything. It will make sure that these things do not happen again. This is why we need a socialist economy, where the workers own the means of production and distribution, or a proletarian state, essentially, through a dictatorship of the proletariat. But we need a centralized land where farmers can work on public land. This is called land control of the workers. For socialists reading this, you may know this as the dictatorship of the proletariat by Karl Marx. This land control of the workers is very much the same, but the idea onto achieve so. And this is essentially onto an idea onto Trotskyism or neo-Trotskyism, third-camp Trotskyism, as you might think, where we have a democratic centralized party, where the vanguard leads the proletariat into the revolution, essentially, and we do that through democratic centralism, and that means having a democracy within the vanguard party. And this essentially is what you would think as for a socialist democratic revolution. You can indeed say that. This is really the only way out. Even through reform, it may not work. The reason why is because you can look at Bolivia, Chile, and even for modern day example, Venezuela, where, if we are to even reform the capitalist society into a proletarian state, because there's still a capitalist outsider, we still suffer from that from the capitalists. For you Americans, you may be thinking, doesn't that sound like democratic socialism? No. Bernie Sanders is a social democrat, not a democratic socialist. Social democracy is the idea where we can help the workers by having a capitalist economy with socialist ideas. That is Bernie Sanders thinking, not democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is the idea we have a socialist economy reformed onto a democracy, not necessarily a planned market, but a full-on planned economy where the workers own their means of production and distribution under a proletarian state, reformed by that. I say this only to educate Americans that think democratic socialism is social democracy. Like I said, the best way to combat this class inequality is through a proletarian, i.e. socialist economy, where the workers own the means of production and distribution. And what I mean by socialist, I mean a proletarian state, a dictatorship of the proletariat, where the free market is dissolved in order to enforce that and not an alternative for the bourgeois to exploit more out of the lower class. Capitalism what makes this happen. Even with a social democratic system, it will still lead exploitation in the country. Just a little bit more nice about it. You can see this in Norway. In Norway, it may have a growing economy, but they get that is not socialist or even proletarian. It is capitalist like every other capitalist first world country. They exploit the third world in order to get where they are now. It would be better if it was more of a actual proletarian state, because recently their economy has been going down. We know that capitalism works by exploitation. It only helps the higher class. If we are to defeat capitalism, the class divide will end. So we can help the workers by making them own their means of production and distribution. We can help the people that need those goods most. This is possible right now and before. The reason it has not is because there is no profit for capitalist governments. Companies for the bourgeois entirely. This is why we need to dismantle the system of oppression against the working class. The people we are helping had enough help already. We need to help that truly the truly ones that need help. That is the working class and the lower class. We need to help these people because they are the people being oppressed. And for lower class people reading this, do you now know the truth? You must stand your ground to not take any shit from capitalism. We have to unite by the working class. Speak out on our problems. Join a party. Speak out against these problems, against this bad system, so that way we can get better pay and truly help the ones that need it most. We must break out from our chains. So how we can do this is up to you. But we must break this horrible cycle if we truly want oppression to end. We cannot have social democracy. We can only truly break the chains with a proletarian state. This is the path we are going. The question is, are you going to stand there to take it? We need to break the system. If we do, we can never be if we do, we can never be free. If we don't, we can never be free. However, we are to stop this. We can be free, as well as to ensure the protection of the lower class, because freedom for the lower class is protection. The working class is what keeps the society a working society. You cannot oppress them for long because the worker is the producer, not the employer.